When America created the world's first nuclear bomb, it thought it was now the world's king, untouchable by anyone, but it was wrong. That one explosion started a dangerous race in the world, and today there are 10 countries in the world that have the code to build a nuclear bomb. Some countries helped each other, and some stole. But all countries resorted to spies, deception, and secret deals. Today we will see how these 10 nations competed with each other to create the world's most dangerous technology. And we will also look at those countries that came very close to acquiring this technology, and those countries that are next on the list to build nuclear weapons. The story actually begins in Germany in 1938. This was the time when scientists first discovered nuclear fission. They found that by splitting atoms, they could release massive energy through a chain reaction. This discovery shook the entire scientific community. The very next year, Albert Einstein sent a warning to America. He informed the American government that the Nazis could weaponize this new science. This warning led to the launch of history's most expensive and secretive science experiment. America launched the Manhattan Project. It was a massive operation involving scientists from the US, UK, and Canada. They spent about 1% of their entire GDP on this one goal. They knew they were up against the Germans, who were already working on this program. But the Germans were achieving very little success. Germany surrendered in May 1945, and by then, it had not prepared a nuclear bomb. But then, in July 1945, the world changed forever. American President Harry Truman, Joseph Stalin, and Winston Churchill were discussing the design of the post-World War II world at the Potsdam Conference. During that meeting, Harry Truman received a secret message that the Trinity test in New Mexico had been successful. America had become a nuclear power. President Truman told Stalin that America now had a nuclear bomb. President Truman told Stalin that America now had a nuclear bomb. He expected Stalin to be surprised, but Stalin merely nodded and said he hoped America would use it well against Japan. Truman did not know that Stalin already knew about this. Soviet spies were deep inside the Manhattan Project. Internally, Stalin was furious that America had built the bomb before him. In August, America dropped 2 nuclear bombs on Japan, ending the Second World War. But as the smoke from these explosions cleared, a new race had begun. The Soviet Union became the second country to join the nuclear club. They had begun their research as early as 1941. They were alerted when they noticed that American and British scientists had suddenly stopped publishing papers on nuclear physics. They realized that the work had gone underground. After witnessing the devastation in Japan, the Soviet program picked up full speed. They stole a lot of data from the Americans, but there was one problem. They were very suspicious. They feared that American double agents might be feeding them false data to sabotage them. Because of this, they didn't fully trust the stolen designs. They captured German scientists and verified all the research with them. They progressed much faster than the West expected. In 1949, the Soviets detonated RDS-1 in Kazakhstan, ending the American monopoly. The arms race in this Cold War had officially begun. You might assume that the third country would be the United Kingdom. After all, the British were friends with the Americans. They had already done considerable groundwork in a project called tube alloys. But according to the Quebec Agreement, they had to give all this research to America. This agreement stated that both countries would share technology with each other. But in 1946, America tore up that agreement. It passed a law that cut off the exchange of nuclear information. They wanted to keep nuclear secrets only to themselves. Britain was shocked. They realized that to remain a world power, they had to do something on their own. They still had the world's largest uranium supply, along with the knowledge. They worked very fast. In 1952, the UK detonated its first bomb off the coast of Australia, which was named Operation Hurricane, and thus Britain also became a nuclear country. But now the game was changing. The bombs dropped on Japan were fission bombs. Now, in the 1950s, scientists were working on something far more dangerous. They were making thermonuclear weapons, also called hydrogen bombs. Instead of splitting atoms, these bombs were made by fusing them together. These bombs were hundreds of times more powerful than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima. Scientists like Oppenheimer requested the government not to build them. They warned that this would lead humanity to destruction. But President Truman ignored them. In 1952, America conducted the Ivy Mike test. This was the first hydrogen bomb. The Soviets tested a hydrogen bomb in 1955 and the British in 1957. Humanity's potential for destruction had now increased by 1,000-fold. The fourth country to build a nuclear bomb was France. France was greatly embarrassed during the Suez Crisis and felt that the superpowers were suppressing it. It decided that it needed its own defense to be considered a European superpower. America was strictly against France possessing nukes. It tried hard to discourage it, but President Charles de Gaulle stood firm. He stated that nuclear weapons were essential for French sovereignty. France began sourcing uranium from its colonies in Africa, such as Madagascar and Gabon. France was still recovering from the devastation of World War II, but its scientists worked hard. In 1960, France went to the Sahara Desert in Algeria and detonated its first nuclear bomb there, which was called Gerboise Bluey. This explosion sent a message to Washington and the entire world that France no longer needed American military protection. The fifth country was China. The Chinese wanted a defense against the Americans. Initially, the Soviet Union helped them. They considered China a fellow communist country. But then relations soured. In fact, Soviet leader Khrushchev began criticizing Stalin's legacy. He wanted better relations with the West. Mao Zedong found this very wrong. He accused the Soviets of losing their revolutionary spirit. The two countries separated, and the Soviets withdrew all their technical help. They left China to figure out the rest on its own. At that time, a massive cultural revolution was underway in China, but they poured all their resources into building a nuclear bomb. In 1964, China shocked the world by testing its first atomic bomb at Lopner Lake. After this, they delivered another shock. Just 2.5 years later, they also tested a hydrogen bomb. This was the fastest development by any country from a basic fission bomb to an advanced fusion bomb. The sixth country on this list is the most mysterious, and that is Israel. To this day, Israel has never officially admitted to having nuclear weapons. It maintains a policy of silence on the matter. In the 1950s, Israel began building a secret nuclear facility in the Negev Desert with the help of France. American spy planes spotted the construction site. President John F. Kennedy was very concerned and demanded an inspection of the plant. The Israelis stonewalled and provided no information. They built fake walls and hidden elevators to conceal the underground bomb-making facilities. John F. Kennedy died before he could stop Israel, and his successor, Lyndon B. Johnson, was quite pro-Israel. It is believed that by 1967, Israel had the nuclear bomb. The world received confirmation of this many years later, in 1986, that a technician named Mordecai Vanunu had worked at the secret Israeli facility. He took photos there and smuggled them out of the country. He gave the story to a British newspaper. But before the story could be published, the Israeli Secret Service, Mossad, reached him. They set a trap. A female agent pretended to be an American tourist in London. She flirted with Vanunu and convinced him to go with her to Rome for a romantic weekend. As soon as he reached Rome, he was drugged, kidnapped, and shipped back to Israel. He spent 18 years in prison there. Because of his sacrifice, the world came to know that Israel was indeed a nuclear power. The seventh country was India. India felt surrounded. It felt trapped between two powerful enemies. It had lost a war to China in 1962 and was constantly fighting with its rival, Pakistan, on the other border. India began a research program using an energy reactor brought from Canada. India claimed they were not building a bomb, but in 1974, they conducted a test in the desert. They called it a peaceful nuclear explosion, codenamed Smiling Buddha. There was an uproar in the world. Canada and America imposed sanctions on India for misusing the technology. India paused for a while, but in the 1990s, it officially weaponized its program. They declared a no first-use policy. This means they promise not to use nukes unless someone else first uses a nuclear bomb on India. The eighth country has perhaps the most unique story. This was South Africa. By the 1970s, the South African government was completely isolated. The rest of the world hated their racism and refused to help. They looked towards their borders and saw enemies everywhere. Neighboring countries like Angola were falling under communist control. They decided they needed the ultimate insurance policy. They had vast uranium reserves, and they began using them. In 1979, an American satellite detected a mysterious flash of light in the Indian Ocean near islands controlled by South Africa. It is believed to have been a joint nuclear test with Israel. By the 1980s, South Africa had built 6 fully functional nuclear bombs. But then the world changed. The Soviet Union collapsed. The threat of communism ended. The South African government knew their time was running out. They were afraid of giving nuclear weapons to the new government, led by Nelson Mandela, that was coming to power. They did what no other country could do. They voluntarily dismantled all their nuclear weapons. They destroyed all the blueprints and melted down the uranium. So, South Africa is the only country that built its nukes and then destroyed them all. The ninth country is Pakistan. After losing half its country to India in 1971, Pakistani Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto declared that even if the people had to eat grass, they would build their nuclear bomb. They could not allow India to dominate them. The hero of this program was Abdul Qadir Khan. He was a metallurgist at a facility in the Netherlands that enriched uranium. He used his clearance to steal top-secret blueprints of centrifuges. He memorized all these designs, copied them, and brought them back to Pakistan. These designs gave them a tremendous head start. They also received help from China, which wanted to keep India in check. America knew what Pakistan was doing, but America needed Pakistan's help to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan. Therefore, the Americans turned a blind eye. In 1998, just weeks after India conducted its tests, Pakistan also responded. They detonated 5 nuclear bombs in the mountains. Everyone in Pakistan was overjoyed. They had leveled the playing field. Unlike India, Pakistan does not have a no first-use policy. This means that if they feel they're losing a conventional war, they will launch a nuclear missile. And now we come to the last country on this list, and that is North Korea. North Korea needed nukes for the same reason everyone else did. They wanted regime survival. The Kim family felt that without nuclear bombs, America would attack them. They initially took Soviet help for energy, but then went completely into secrecy. They signed treaties promising not to build weapons, and then broke those treaties. They used designs that are said to have been purchased from Pakistan. In 2006, North Korea conducted its first underground nuclear test. It was a small explosion, and according to some experts, it was a partial failure. But they kept trying. In 2009 and 2013, they tested larger bombs. By 2017, they tested a thermonuclear hydrogen bomb. And today, they have intercontinental missiles that can theoretically reach America. North Korea is the only country that withdrew from the Non-Proliferation Treaty and built a nuclear bomb that, these are the 10 countries that built the bomb. But the story is not limited to them. There are other countries that host nuclear weapons. During the Cold War, America and the Soviet Union hid their nuclear weapons all over the world. American nukes are still stationed in Belgium, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, and Turkey. Russia recently moved tactical nuclear weapons back to Belarus. That we must also look at those countries that tried and failed. You will be surprised to know how many countries were close to building a nuclear bomb. Argentina and Brazil had military programs which they have now abandoned. Sweden and Switzerland also considered it. But the most volatile region has always been the Middle East. Iraq had its own nuclear program during Saddam Hussein's era. In 1981, Israel launched Operation Opera and destroyed the Iraqi reactor with airstrikes. In 2007, Israel did it again. They bombed a secret facility in Syria that was being built with the help of North Korea. The problem for Israel now is Iran. Iran has been enriching uranium for years. Israel and the West have targeted Iran's nuclear program and pushed it back. Another country that is often overlooked is Japan, which experts call a threshold state. Japan has advanced rocket technology and large reserves of plutonium. Experts believe that if Japan wanted to, it could build nuclear weapons in a matter of months. Currently, its pacifist constitution prevents this. But if the geopolitical situation in Asia changes, Japan could break the treaty anytime. And finally, we cannot forget what lies in the depths of the oceans. Treaties and inspections focus on land, but the true strength of nuclear countries lies in the depths of the sea. America, Russia, UK, China, France, and India all operate nuclear-armed submarines. These submarines can stay underwater for months, and tracking them is impossible. They ensure that even if a country is wiped off the map, their submarines can launch retaliatory strikes from anywhere in the world. This is the concept of mutually assured destruction. This is the same dangerous logic that has maintained peace for 80 years. This technology, which started in a laboratory in Germany, has now spread to every corner of the map. We have seen the nuclear club grow from just 1 member to 10. The technology is old, but its blueprints are everywhere. The only thing stopping the next country is politics, not science.